Hi, Shanna Rowe Jackson here from Caution Artists at Play, and today I'm going to show you something a little different. This is actually a school project of mine that I had to create for my Modern Art 2 class, where we had to write a research paper about an artist, and then we had to create a video to present it. I chose to focus on Jackson Pollock and his all-over drip paintings and how they sort of changed the way the art world viewed art. And so that is what you are about to see here. I was quite unsure at first how I wanted to do this video, but then I decided after reading so much about Pollock that it would actually be kind of fun to try a Pollock-like painting. Mine will be much smaller because I do not have the room in my studio to do such a large piece, but I thought that that would be fun to do, so I decided to film it, and that's what you are seeing here. And I will read you my paper while you get to see me pretend that I'm Pollock. Even if one is not familiar with the ins and outs of the art world, most have heard of or seen Pollock's very recognizable artwork at one time or another. Whether one is a fan of or one vehemently detests Pollock's drip paintings, it is clear that his work has stood the test of time and changed the world's outlook on art as a whole. When he first began creating his drip paintings, the art community was abuzz with either praise or criticism. This controversy over his work still stands today, and it seems there are two schools of thought when it comes to whether his art could be considered real art or not. Nonetheless, no matter what side of the argument one is on, it is obvious that something new had happened in art upon his creation of these pieces. Furthermore, the fact that people are still debating them even today is a testament to the timelessness and the long-term effects of his artwork in the world. Pollock's all-over drip paintings changed the way the art world viewed painting, as evidenced through the eyes of his peers, how later artists have been influenced by his work, and by the way his work is still viewed and valued today. Every so often, a painter has to destroy painting. Cézanne did it, Picasso did it with Cubism, then Pollock did it. He busted our idea of a picture all to hell. Then there could be new paintings again. This quote by Pollock's contemporary, Willem de Kooning, sums up the opinion of many of the other abstract expressionists at this time. In fact, de Kooning often spoke quite highly of Pollock's work, despite the fact that they had, according to Pollock's wife and fellow artist Lee Krasner, fought on occasion. This was a good indication that the people around Pollock recognized something great in his work. These paintings, which were done in large scale, were created in a way most had not thought to do before. He laid large pieces of unstretched canvas on the floor and stood over them with loaded brush in hand. He hovered just above his canvas with his brush, never actually touching the surface itself, and let the paint pour out of the bristles. This allowed for more spontaneous arm movements for painting and often led to thick pouring drips and splatters on the picture surface. No one had seen this technique done quite like this before, and it stunned the art world. In a 1980 interview with Barbara Rose, when asked how she felt about Pollock's splatter paintings upon seeing them for the first time, Lee Krasner responded by saying, "There was certainly a sense of, I never saw this before." It was not just the attention of other artists that Pollock caught with his new drip paintings, however. It was also that of the critics. Many critics spoke not only of his new technique, but of its innovation as well. Alonzo Lansford spoke of the fact that Pollock's work had been revered by some critics in the U.S. and England and disliked by others. In an article in Art Digest, where he was reviewing Pollock's 1948 show at Betty Parsons Gallery, which displayed many of Pollock's drip paintings, he had this to say: "At least two foremost critics here and in England have recently included Pollock in their lists of the half-dozen most important of America's advanced painters. Other, equally prestigious authorities have dismissed him, at least verbally, with an oath." This divide really comes as no surprise, since his style was so unlike anything others had seen. As Clement Greenberg, who was a longtime critic and fan of Pollock's work, explained a couple of years before Pollock had even started his splatter paintings, "There has been a certain amount of self-discipline in the school of Paris art since the exit of Cubism. In Pollock, there's absolutely none. And he is not afraid to look ugly. Profoundly original art looks ugly at first." It is clear that Greenberg's high opinion of Pollock only got better after he started showing his drip paintings. In his review of Pollock's 1948 Betty Parsons Gallery show, Greenberg praised the artist as being in line with Marin to compete for recognition as the greatest American painter of the 20th century, and added that no other American has presented such a case. Greenberg and Lansford were not the only critics to praise Pollock's innovation after seeing the show at Betty Parsons Gallery. In an article in the New York Times, Sam Hunter said that Pollock's work reflects an advanced stage of the disintegration of modern painting, but went on to say that it is disintegration with a possibly liberating and cathartic effect. He later added that his work was a deliberate assault on our image-making faculty. This speaks to how different and revolutionary Pollock's all-over drip paintings were. But what did all of this mean for the future of art? Clearly, Pollock's contemporaries felt Pollock had hit on something big with this new style of painting. But would this have a lasting effect on the way the world viewed art? It would appear that it has. After Pollock, artists looked at the surface that they worked on differently. No longer did they have to keep their work contained to the middle of the canvas, nor was painting as precious as it had seemed in the past. In a 2012 article by National Public Radio, Harry Cooper, curator of the National Gallery of Art, put it this way. In the process, he opened up a whole new way of thinking about what a painting could be, how you can make a painting, what it could do in an abstract way. Many artists since Pollock have been inspired by his work. Artists such as Morris Louis and others from the Washington School of Art were often inspired by the freedom of relinquishing control of the medium in the same way Pollock did. Louis would often use drips and pours and allow them to flow down the canvas in his work, such as in his 1959 piece, Faces. It was not just the artists immediately after Pollock's time that were inspired by his work, though. Many of the techniques employed by artists and craftsmen today have a Pollock-like quality to them. Take acrylic pouring, for instance. Acrylic pouring requires a thinned-down paint to be poured all over the surface. These creations are often quite colorful and result in abstract pieces with obvious layers of pours and splatters, just like the work of Pollock. This has been a huge trend in recent years, and one cannot help but see a bit of Pollock in each of these acrylic pouring pieces being made. Even non-artists have been known to partake in paint pouring as a pastime, bringing the Pollock-like style to whole new audiences. So what is it about Pollock's work that makes it stand out so much? He is certainly not the first to splatter paint on a canvas. As art historian Jonathan Feinberg states in Art Since 1940, Strategies of Being, the genius of Pollock's drip style is not a technical discovery. Siqueiros and Hoffman had experimented with the technique before. As early as the mid-20s, the Surrealists had experimented with pouring and splattering paint, and Pollock certainly knew these works. Yet, even though he did not invent the technique, there is no denying that when one sees a splatter painting, they think Pollock. As the text also says, it is not whether or not he invented the technique that matters. It is how he used the technique and the ideas that drove that decision which revolutionized painting. Even with so many people who respect Pollock's work, there are still some who do not have a taste for it. Many feel that Pollock's work took no skill and is highly overrated. If one were to ask a random person on the street what they thought of Pollock's work, there is a good chance that the response would either be one of love or one of absolute hate. Regardless of the opinion of the stranger on the street, it is highly likely that they have at least heard of Jackson Pollock's work. This speaks volumes to the effect that his work has had on the art world and the world as a whole. His name has become a household name, whether someone would like to hang his work above the sofa or not. However, if one did want to hang his work above the sofa, they would be hard-pressed to afford it. Something else that is evidence of his long-lasting effect on the art scene is how much his artwork is currently worth. In 2006, one of his drip paintings, No. 5, 1948, sold for the highest amount ever spent on a painting. The private buyer spent a whopping $140 million on it. The sheer amount of worth put on Pollock's work is an indication of how much his techniques are valued. The fact that the monetary value of his work has only increased over time shows that his work is still revered today, maybe even more so than when he first created it. It is clear that his work has had a unique influence on the art world as a whole. Whether one is a fan of Jackson Pollock's all-over drip paintings or not, there is no denying that they changed the way the world looks at art. His use of an all-over composition and unique techniques with paint pouring and dripping have both astounded and amazed people since his drip period began in 1947. This period only lasted about 3 years until 1950, yet it has had a profound rippling effect that we as art lovers are still feeling today. It is evident by the way that Pollock's drip paintings were received by his contemporaries, how future artists were inspired by his work, and how much his work is worth and still talked about today, that Pollock changed the way art was looked at for generations to come. He will go down in history books as one of the most innovative painters of his time. Love him or hate him, it is clear that Pollock's reputation, his style, and his art is here to stay.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please hit subscribe. Also, if you're interested in seeing more of my artwork, I'm on social media, so check out the links in the description below.